Hello crafty neighbors, and welcome back to Hana Coffee and Crafts. So this week we're going to work on a Valentine's project. In this video it is a step-by-step, except that I have cut some elements out in advance. The project is this envelope card you can use to give cash or a gift card. I opted for cash. And then this is just a card with a charm, or it's like a little token. It's not really a charm. It's a resin token, and it has a little sentiment on it. And I'm going to put one of those in each one of my envelopes. I will show you the tools that I use to cut the envelope, but you don't have to have an envelope board in order to cut an envelope. This is the We Are Memory Keepers envelope punch board, and this is what I use to cut my envelope. It has all the measurements, and the reason I use it is because you have the sizes here, so you don't have to think about what size your paper needs to be in order to achieve the size project that you want. For this project, the paper size is 6 7/8 by 6 7/8, and that gives me an envelope that's 4 by 4. That's the size that I want. So that's why I use the envelope punch board. It just makes it easier to figure out your sizes. This is my Crafteteer cut and score board, and so I have my cutter or paper trimmer here, and then this is the scoreboard, and underneath you have an envelope creating. So this shows you how to position your paper, how to score, and how to cut. And then here's your scoring tool here. So there are all your instructions, and so you can use these tools to make your envelope. And most of the scoreboards that I've seen, like my Martha Stewart, and I have a scoreboard that they also have the envelope tool on them. So however you decide you want to do it, that's fine. Now, to color my paper, I didn't have pink paper, the color that I wanted to use, and I wanted to color my paper pink, and I wanted to have like craft highlights because my hearts are being cut from craft paper. So I just took a white sheet of, I believe this is 80 pound, 90 pound. It's not the super heavy cardstock because I didn't want to use a super heavy weight. So I think this is an 80-pound paper, and I colored it with Ranger picked raspberry, and I just went over it and put in all of my pink, and then I used Vintage Photo Distress Oxide ink, and I went around the edges, and then just in random spots on the paper I just blended in some Vintage Photo. Now I'm going to stencil over this, so it will have the stencil effect that you see on this one, just to give it a little more interest. To create the border so that I can stitch the edges around my border, I used my book punch. I like making books, and I like creating my own journals. So I went ahead and got the this book punch board. This is another We Are Memory Keepers product. I have most of their little tools that just make certain crafting tasks go faster, but you don't need this. I like it because it just made it easier for me to create this stitching. But there are dies that can give you a faux stitch pattern. You can use that. I just wanted to sew mine. You don't have to sew yours. If you have a sewing machine and if you want to sew just a regular stitch all the way around on your card, then you can do that as opposed to the hand sewing that I did. But that is how I made these, and I just put the paper, you just put the paper in here This board has two types of punch areas. This is for signatures. If you're punching signatures, this has a little, it's sort of depressed in here, and you can put your signatures on there, and you put this up here and punch. But for this project, I used, and my arthritis is acting up today, so I just put my paper on like this and line it up. And there are a series of holes here. And so then I just punch the holes and then turn it and punch and turn it and punch until all the sides are punched. But you screw these little tools in. But so this is a nice tool to have if you want to do hole punches. It comes with this board, this punch board. It comes with a punching or piercing tool. They give you a little bit of waxed thread to get you started. And you have a straight needle, and then you have a curved needle. And the straight needle I used and is in with some of my other bookbinding tools. But the curved needle is the one that I use the most because it makes it easier when you're sewing bindings or when you're doing stitching, like the stitching we're going to be doing on these cards. This just makes it easier to go around and create your stitch. And then this is wax thread from my bookbinding supplies. And I just picked a color that is going to complement the chipboard. I didn't have exactly that color. I thought I did, but I couldn't find it. But I think this color works out better anyway because it gives us more contrast. Again, you don't have to have any of these tools. You can just take the basic design and let your creative juices flow. And you can design your pocket however you like. You can use washi tape. You can use, just any element that's going to trim the edges. Washi tape is really nice because you can put it down. If you have washi, you can put the washi down. You can cut it to fit your corners. And if you do use the washi tape, you can just put glue on it and glue it down. It gives you a neat finish. This is an old Sizzix Biggs die, and it has 3 hearts on it, 3 sizes, and I just use the big one here. Then for my, let me pull our sample down. Okay, so these two is this die. So this is the frame, and then this is the heart that's in the center when you cut the frame. And so I use those two and the big one from here. And then these, and I ordered these from Temu or AliExpress. Can't remember which one of the two. I usually put on here on when I label it, I usually label which one I got them from, but I was doing a lot of ordering and I forgot to do that. And then this is also, I think, either Temu or AliExpress, and that's these little hearts, flowers. And so that's the little flowers that you see. And I just cut one set from the craft cardstock, and then I cut one set from the leftover sheets, because this sheet, you will have a large section left over, and I use that to cut out my flowers. Okay. Then to create this sort of corrugated cardboard look on my hearts, I use this, they call it a vertical stripe folder. I just call it faux corrugated cardboard folder. And you can get this. They have this on Amazon. I think I ordered mine from AliExpress because AliExpress had it for like $2, and I think it's maybe a little more expensive on Amazon. Well, I think it's $8 on Ally now too. Sometimes you have to catch these things when the stores are having sales. And so that's what I use to create that. Again, you don't have to do any of that, that thing that I've done. You do your own thing. Just find the elements. What I usually do is find elements that I have that are as close to the whatever's in the tutorial. And then that way you come up with your own project and it's unique to you. And then this love sentiment is from a sentiment die that I have in my stash. It actually has it's a shadow die, so you cut it out and then it has the silhouette behind it. So I just cut the one piece, the love piece, to go across my heart like that. But again, you can use any die that you have. Now, if you are a beginner and this is you're just beginning your crafting journey, there are probably some basic dies that you want to get, like your squares, your circles, your ovals, and maybe even a triangle and some arches. But you want like some of the basic stuff and a heart. So I think if you don't have a problem with ordering from AliExpress or Temu, I, you know, that might be a way to go until you figure out what you want to do with this craft. Then if you want to spend more money and buy expensive die sets from some of the brand name companies, you can do that. And I will try to put together a list of names so that if you're not familiar with these companies, you will have a list of names of companies that make expensive die sets. Okay. My budget dictates that I purchase what is affordable and budget friendly for me. So this is just a plain postage stencil, and it has just some script on here and then some postage symbols, and I use that to stencil in, just to have a design on the inside of the flap, because I didn't want to put paper or anything on the flap. And I ordered that from Amazon. Well, I didn't really order it. This was a promotional item. So, and these stencil sets also were promotional items. So they, I got them from Amazon at no cost to me. And I love these stencils. And this is one of my favorites. I just love this design because it has a soft, sort of delicate look, and I don't care what you put it on. It just turns out very pretty. So there's that. And I think there's a Tim Holtz design, stencil that looks just like this. I don't know. But I think you can find this stencil or this stencil set. And then some of the little small things that obviously you're going to need glue. I've been using this My Sweet Petunia glue press, which is very nice. But I thought I wanted to try the We Are Memory Keepers one because I saw some commercial glue applicators on Amazon and they had this shape. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to try that. So this comes with 3 tubes. You get 3 different needle sizes. So depending on what you're doing, close that back up. You can put on a different tip, but I'm using the very small needle point. I forget the size, but I'm using that for this. But you can use any type of applicator. I keep a glue spreader close by in case I get clumps of glue and I can spread that out. And I also took a silicone brush and cut it down. And I use this also to spread on tiny pieces. So you need something like that. The other elements that I'm using on this project is ribbon. This was some green ribbon. This has been in my stash for a minute. I think I got it at the Dollar Tree. It was on, not the Dollar Tree, Big Lots. One of the ribbon companies, one of the craft companies was going out of business, and I guess they dumped a lot of stuff in Big Lots, and I picked up 5 or 6 of these, and so I've had these for several years. I don't use a lot of ribbon on my projects. I like to have it on hand just in case. You're going to need brads, and this is a brad. So you're going to need a brad, something decorative in the center. So brads are what I recommend. And then buttons. And these buttons came from my stash. And whenever I'm getting rid of old clothes, if I'm tearing it up and using it for dust rags, or if I'm, it's not wearable anymore, I remove the buttons and I put the buttons in my button collection. And this right here, you can see the button. Now the ribbon is stapled and then the button is glued down to the stapled area. But I didn't have any brown buttons that matched the colors that I was using. So I just took the white buttons and used one of my blending brushes. This is a blending brush for those of you who are new. And I just took my blending brush that has the vintage photo on it, and I just colored it and made it the color that I wanted it to be. I can't spend a lot of money on crafting because I'm retired, so it's not like there's a paycheck coming in. When you retire, you have to live on what you have. So I try to make my little economies by not, if I can't get it, if it isn't available to me in the Vine program at Amazon, then I try to figure out another way to do it. Okay, and then these little cards, and again, this was another promotional item from Amazon, and I think these are so cute. These would be cute for kids to pass out on Valentine's Day. So you get the little card, and then you get the double-sided adhesive dots, and you use those to affix the charm to your pocket hug. And it just says a little heart, from me to you, filled with lots of love and big hugs too. Love you lots. And then each heart has a sentiment. This one says, you are my dearest love. And you just attach it. And then you can put it on your project, or, however you want to present yours. But I just thought those were cute. And you get 10 hearts and 10 of the hug cards. So you don't have to attach this to anything. It can just be a standalone, and you could just write something cute on the back and hand it to someone. I have to make 4 of these. One is already made, and I have stitched and stenciled another one. And now I just need to add all of the embellishments to it. So before I do that, though, I want to go ahead and fix my hearts. And so I'm just going to I want to get as many done as I can. I have 2 of these folders, but I still think I'm only going to be able to do 2. Yeah, because if I do it the other way, it just occurred to me, if I do it the other way, then my stripes won't be going in the right direction. So I'm going to go ahead and emboss these. So I think we're ready to assemble the pocket. And this stitch is easy to do. You're just going over the card and pulling it up. I always start my stitching on the back. So I flip it over, pull my first thread through the back at the top flap, and just leave a tail thread there. And then I go down through to the next hole at the bottom and then come up through there to make my first loop. But it doesn't matter where you start. You can start anywhere on your card and just, I made my wax thread long enough that I could continue to sew all the way around the card. And the way you do that is to measure your flaps, a length of string, and then double it for each flap. And then you will have enough string to go all the way around without having to tie on another thread. All right, so I think we're ready to try to assemble this one card. If you've already cut your envelope shape and you've stitched your edges, or if you're not going to stitch your edges and you're just going to use the envelope shape, that will work too. I took my vintage photo and went along the edges of my card just to bring in that, let's see, and I just tap a little of that off because I don't want it really real dark. And I just went around the edges on top of the thread so that the thread is not so much lighter than my card. But as I said, all of these things are optional. It depends on your design, what you do. Because the key is just to get the basic shape and figure out what you're going to put inside of your envelope. And I just go around the edges. I think when you distress the edges, and that's what this is called, when you add the vintage photo ink around the edges, it's called distressing. And I just think when you distress the edges, it tones down the color and it gives it that vintage, that old school vintage look. So you don't need to do a lot. Just look at what you've got and decide, what's working for you. Now, to glue down my flaps, you can use glue. I'm going to use glue and double-sided tape. So you want to put it on the two lower ends of your card. I was about to make a huge mistake. And the reason I'm using the glue and the tape is because of the stitching. And I probably could have left the stitching off of these flaps, but it was just easier for me to just stitch and stitch in a continuous line. So once you have the tape down, then you just use your pokey tool to remove the double-sided tape, take off the release paper, and then I add glue. Because of the threads, I want to make sure that the adhesive is getting underneath the thread. So I add the glue on top of the sticky tape here, but and I'm just using my silicone brush here just to spread the glue out so it won't be lumpy. And you can add an little extra glue to the flap that's going to go on the top. And you don't want a lot because the glue is going to spread, and if you put too much, it's going to squish out into your pocket, and you don't want that. Now I have these little bobby curl clips, pin curl clips rather, and I've used these since I started crafting, because when I first started card making and I didn't have all these little cute things that the people I was following their videos, and they had all these little cute things, and I was like, I don't have those and I'm too cheap to buy those right now. So I had a lot of these pin curl clips because that's how I curl my hair. I can't sleep on the rollers. I used to roll my hair, but now I can't sleep on those things. I'll get a headache. But I can do the pin curls and then put my little bonnet or wrap my hair in a scarf. And then it falls out. It has a really pretty little flip to it. Okay. I just want to make sure that glue is in place and not sticking to my card. And normally I'll just set this aside and let it dry. The glue that I'm using is pretty fast drying glue. It is Books by Hand PVA glue, but any good PVA glue will do. And on the project sheet that I'm going to make available for you to download, you'll be able to follow the link. Most of this will be on Amazon anyway. And I will put discount codes for the items that I have discount codes for. I don't always have discount codes for all of the items, but any that I do have a discount code for, I will include that. I think I'm going to get my brad in place first. I think that's going to be easier. We can go ahead and put our love on our heart. It's going to be, and you could distress the edges of put the distress ink around the edges. Maybe you might want to put the pink around it, but I figured since I was going to have pink flowers on mine, I didn't need that. So we're going to let that dry. We're going to set that aside. We'll set this aside. And we're going to assemble our flowers. I mixed up the height. You know, some have long stems, some have short stems. I tried not to put all of the same color together. And I put mine on I had a small piece of leftover paper. And I think I'm going to do the same thing with these. So I just took a strip of scrap paper. And these hearts are different sizes. You have some that are really tiny. And there's like, I think, 2 of each shape when you cut out a group. So I'm also trying to make sure that I sort of mix the shapes up and I don't have all the same size. But it really doesn't matter. You're just making a little garden. You don't want to stress about it too much. And these flowers are just like regular flowers. They're just pretty. So whatever arrangement you end up with when you do your flowers, it's going to look nice. And then when you think you have like a reasonable order, you can put them down on the double-sided tape. And then that allows you to be able to play with how you want your flowers to look. And they're going to shift a little bit once you get them down, but like I said, the bouquet will look good. It doesn't really matter. It only matters to people like me. And once you have that set, then I put another piece of tape on top. And I can cut off what I don't need, because this is going to fit inside your envelope right here. You're just going to pull off the double-sided tape, put your bouquet, decide on, you can put it at an angle or you can put it in straight, which is what I plan to do. The glue gives you oops time. Then just press that down to pick it up, and then I take my little pin curl clips and clip that. So now that's good. That's ready to go. My heart is now ready to go. And I think what I want to do is put on my brad. So these brads they have little legs on them. But I'm not going to punch a hole in my envelope. I don't want to do that. But you can do that. You can just take your hole punch and punch a hole and stick the brad in. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to remove the legs from the brad. And that's real simple. You just sort of wiggle it back and forth. And you can use regular glue. I'm using glossy accents because I find that glossy accents, for things like this, I just think it works better than regular glue. And then I just fill my, the inside of my brad. I am in my own light, so I don't know if you can see that. And glossy accents hardens because this is something that you use to create dimensioned elements on your projects. And then once I have the glossy accents on there, I just push it down. And of course, I grab another one of my little pin curls and make sure it's centered. And that will hold that down. Now it takes the glossy accents a little longer to dry. So you may want to put yours on last because it will take it a minute to dry. But you can see how easy this is already to put together. So now we can attach our frame. And you'll just have to play with your frame and your offset heart. All right, so I am happy with where my heart is to be located. So I'm just going to apply a little glue. And how I position my heart, and I know you'll be using different hearts, but if you happen to be using this one, I just try to line up the bottom edge of this frame heart with the indent in the sort of the V shape. And then, of course, you just need to sit all of this aside and allow the glue to set. I think I'm going to make my ribbon on this one a little shorter than I did on the last one. I felt like the last one was too long. And the reason I'm putting this hanger on here, because I know that there's this thing now, I guess, that people do Valentine trees, sort of like Christmas trees, but for Valentine's Day. I don't get it, but I don't have to. But I figure in case one of the ladies that I'm presenting these to is doing a Valentine's tree and she wants to hang, she can hang this as a decorative ornament. So I just cross my ribbon. This is double-sided satin, so it doesn't really matter. It's just me being happy with what I'm seeing. Put that there. And then just take my Tim Holtz tiny attacher and staple. And then I will add my button right there to cover the staple. So that part's done. And let's see, I think this is dry. Well, it's still a little wet, but it will dry. Okay. Gluing this is tricky because of the ridges in the paper. So, but you do have oops time. You can adjust your heart before your glue dries completely. And so once that's dry, you've created a little pocket inside your pocket. While that is drying, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to use my vintage photo to color my button. And all I do is just hit it. And I do a lot because this ink will fade, but it won't. It will last long enough for them to get their their gift. And I don't expect that them to hold on to these little envelopes. I'm sure they're going to end up in the trash, so I'm not that concerned about And I try to make all of my projects, I want them to be pretty, but I also realize that, people are decluttering, and so they're not going to save cards, and people don't hold on to things these days. And so that's why, I'm not going to go out and spend $25 for 10 sheets of paper. That's not happening. Now, if some people sell their cards. Now, if you are selling cards, and if I have an order, so I do have paper that is a little bit on the expensive side that I use for cards when people order special cards for birthdays or sympathy cards. Then I do have special paper that I use for that. But just for cards that like I give my grandkids and my husband, family birthdays and stuff like that. So I am not about to do that. It's too expensive. And my husband already teases me about the amount of time that card makers spend. He goes, "You all spend $50 to make a $2 card." And I don't know where he thinks he can buy a card these days for $2. But it for card makers, and I guess that's what people don't understand. It's really about the creating. It's having. Ew, that's not sticking. I wonder why. It's just creating. It's touching the paper, feeling the paper, watching it come together. I guess it's the same feeling that an artist gets when he's painting on a canvas. So that's what the card making is for us. So it's not about what we spend on our supplies. It's about being able to create. And I think creativity is great because I think that when you are a creative person, it's a spiritual connection to God because God's act of love was the act of creation. And so those who create, I think, walk kind of in that special place of connection to the Creator. And that's the other thing about creating. There are no mistakes. Just happy twists and turns. So then whatever you're going to put in my case, I'm putting money. And there we have our second card. So that's the pocket card. That's how quick and easy it is to make it. I like making these. They're very simple. The most involved part of creating these little pockets is the stitching around the edges. If you leave off the stitching that isn't going to be seen, that would save some time. So the other elements are very easy. Once you know how many you're going to make, like I only needed to do 4. So you just cut out all of your hearts and cut all your little flowers and just set up an assembly line and put them together. It doesn't take very long to color the paper. When I first decided that I was going to color the papers, I was like, I am going to be here forever doing this. But I was using a super smooth cardstock, and so the distress ink went on very smoothly, and it went on very quickly. So it's that simple to create these if you think it's something that you would like to do for Valentine's Day. So that's the Valentine's project. If you're in the next door craft group, then you can put your comments in the comments section on Nextdoor inside the group. And I want to remind all of the people who are in the Nextdoor group that you can post your projects in the Nextdoor group. Just if you create any of these projects, upload them so that we can see them. I'm still trying to figure out how to do the meetings and so that we can all get together and work on a project together. I just need to wait for my schedule to settle down a little bit because I am doing a lot of volunteer work. So I'm just trying to see how to arrange my schedule. I also want to remind the ladies in the Nextdoor craft group that if you would like to participate in the monthly challenges, I have 2 monthly challenges on Blogger. I'll put the links down below to the challenges. We post the first Sunday for 613 Avenue Create. That starts the first Sunday of each month. And then a place to start posts the first Monday of each month. Okay, so that's it. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope that you will hit the subscribe button and the like button. And I hope you'll come back next time. Thanks. Bye.